All right, the first thing on the agenda are public comments. Does anybody in the room have any public comments, or does anybody online have any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the review of the FY25 department budgets. The first one, I'm going to take them out of order here so that we can get somebody moved along. I'd like to do the information technology budget first. Did you or Deb? Okay, no problem. I actually spent a few minutes, probably if somebody else did too. But when I went through the budget for information technology, I see that it's pretty much level funded for FY24 with FY25 at $388,000. The one thing that I will point out, since we've been pointing it out on all the positions, is that the and this department is one person, a director of information technology, plus the support of a admin person. Is that correct, or isn't it correct?
For about 10 hours a week.
Okay, so it's really about 25% or thereabouts, 30, but let's call it a third of an administrator who's shared with the HR and
The selectman's
the
office.
selectman's office.
Correct.
All right. The only thing I point out, because I think that, you know, we've talked about the salaries in the town of Kingston, and this position has increased from $83,000 a year in FY21 to $108,000 in FY25, which if you do the calculation, it's an average increase of 7.5%. I just point out one more time that on an ongoing basis, I don't believe that the town of Kingston can afford annual increases averaging 7.5%. The major expenses, software license of $60,000. We budgeted that last year at $90,000. Is 60,000 about the right level, or did something happen that we don't need as much this time around?
Correct, because we switched over our Microsoft licensing to the government licensing, and it's
Some savings there.
yes,
Excellent.
Yeah, I have a note from last year that was a one-time expense.
yes.
Okay, good. The second most expensive item, and having worked in this building, it always, I know how expensive Munis is. And, you know, we have 59,000, so it costs us $5,000 a month just to have the accounting software in here. And I think Carol can speak to this, but I believe that, you know, we may use Munis for more.
We
than
do.
Kind of,
We
okay,
do for the water department. They
okay,
use it for the
okay, and you know, there's always the possibility for using it for payroll or HR or some other systems, but I suspect that would cost more in license fees.
Yes.
So, but I don't have any thoughts on Munis except that, you know, it seems to work for the town, and I know a lot of towns use it. And it seems to me that every time I went to any kind of a seminar or anything, a convention, is that if you were the accountant or the finance people in a town that had Munis, you loved it. If you were in a town that had something else, that's what you loved. And I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. The website costs us $29,000 a year. Telecommunications, I assume that's mostly the telephones,
Yes.
39,000, internet, 50,000. So I don't have any other comments or questions concerning this budget. I'll open it up to the finance committee members.
The website expense, we we're just talking about 29, but we're already at 32 this year. Is there any reason? Is it front loaded somehow?
Why is the budget going down? If we spent 32 this year, why is it 29?
So far, we haven't finished paying off everything, I don't believe.
But there'll be less expense next year.
Yes.
You're gonna find out how to do it more efficiently next year. Get all of the accounting charges in the right accounts.
Shall I speak about this? So I'm
Go ahead.
retiring the first week in July.
Congratulations.
I'm not sure who will be handling the budget at that point, but it's pretty much,
Tight budget.
very, very tight.
And if this was a case, David, I suspect, knowing what goes on in most businesses and around here, if our IT manager had her way, she probably would have asked for $35,000 or $40,000 in that line.
Yeah.
you
But
know?
were
Well, that
you
was the
talking
only
about year to date?
Yeah, year to date, we're at
Like,
32.
so that's we're only through now,
Right,
right?
we're already
So
over
that's a lot
budget
of,
through
yeah.
6 months.
spent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's over budget this year, right? Is that what you're saying?
that's what it looks
Yeah.
like.
On
You're
paper,
spe-
you're 6
spending-
months through the year and you're already over budget.
Yes.
So my question is,
Why?
why? And then
More
how
modules,
we
more
haven't
modules.
allotted for hire next year?
More modules were added midway through the year, and that was the expense.
One-time charges.
Okay.
Go ahead, Keith.
Can I just, and I hope that people can hear me. So a couple of things. Obviously, Marie was hiring, she mentioned that. I was gonna bring it up tonight. We're looking at a couple of different options at this point, how we address the oversight of our IT department for fiscal 25, including potentially outsourcing the oversight of our networks. There may be a potential savings in doing that. If there is a savings, we'll bring that forward to the finance committee prior to town meeting, if there's an ability to do that. Secondly, the internet charges have increased a little bit, but I think it's important to recognize that Marie applied for and received a grant through the state of Massachusetts to run fiber to all town buildings, including all the school buildings. So the town now is no longer networked through Comcast and their coaxial cable. We have run and own fiber optic lines between all the different town buildings that we have now, including schools, which provides the town more security with our networks. And I think, Katie can correct me, she's up next. Marie can correct me. Marie can correct me if I'm wrong, and it doesn't, and it doesn't seem to make sense to me, frankly. Internet services were budgeted at 26,000 in fiscal 24, and fiscal 25, they jumped from 26 to 50. But we no longer have Comcast. So
We do have Comcast, this Comcast fiber. It's piped in through this building, and then we split it to all other buildings. So there are buildings that were paying their own budget of the Comcast. And now they're not going to, so their budget is actually going down because the IT department now just pays one bill for all buildings for Comcast.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple.
Go ahead.
Just for information, what's the security system repairs? It came in 24 budget, 1,080.
Yes, that's for maintenance of all cameras
For town hall.
for, yeah, whoever has cameras.
Okay, and copy leases, just the decrease from 23 was like almost $10,000. Was there a new lease or something?
It, from
29 to 20 now, I just. It's,
Yep.
that's okay, I'm really, never mind then. We'll go on to computer equipment. That just decreased, from 32,000 in 23 to 5,000.
Correct. So in 23, we had incidentals where we needed to replace a lot of computer parts, computers. So we're now back to the 5,000.
You,
Any other questions? Could I have a motion, please?
make a motion to accept, personal services at 108,247 in expenses at 280,106 for a total of 388,353.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Abstained? 600, and we have nobody online. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you very much.
The next one here, should we do, let's, since accounting is online here, and probably gonna be on for the whole meeting, let's do HR next.
Okay, I just threw out a few questions to Tina for HR. And it, again, the norm, the salary. Getting past that, I just asked about travel and meetings. Just that it increased from 22 to, from 296 up to 1,100 now. And year to date's 900. So I just asked for an explanation of that. So
Can you give me?
I didn't, if you want to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so the increase was asked for, one, because I'm already over budget for FY 24. In general, the increase is happening because we're going back to live meetings from when COVID was meeting webinars. The company that we usually go with, that I go to my meetings for is MMHR or Maya, and they service the whole state, so the meetings can be anywhere. So that's the increase.
And for human resources, how many are in the department? Like, oh, okay, so that's just your.
I mean, having said that, the admin that IT shares with Board of Selectmen, I also share, and I probably have more hours of her time just based on having to run the benefits part of the for the town as well as the school.
I mean, I just,
I would consider that position at least half of HR, for HR. So,
Although the salary is not in here. Thing.
That's
right,
right.
exactly.
Selectmen's budget.
Yeah, same with IT.
I mean, I just have to mention it because we're mentioning it on all of them about the increase in salary.
Mhm. Over the 4 years.
Yeah,
And of course, the thing that I have avoided is that these salaries that we're looking at for FY 25 aren't the final salaries, correct?
For in this case, wage and personnel would put in if there was a COLA, correct?
Right, so that there'll be, you know, when I say there's been a 7.5% increase, it's probably gonna end up being more like 8.5% over the 4 years. Because there's $80,000 or whatever it is for wage and personnel that's not in this budget yet.
Not in the 25 budget, but the actuals for the other years.
Right.
included The COLA,
Yeah.
yep.
Exactly.
So why would there be an overtime if,
Because at one point, HR for 1 year had payroll report to it, and that's an hourly position. And that's the
okay.
same for my clerical union salaries are in there because it's a union position. The employee that was in it was here forever, so had longevity and also qualified for the sick buyback, but they retired. But prior to her retirement, that function was.
Any other questions? Concerns? Motion, please.
Make a motion for human resources personnel line item, what, 108,247, expenses 2,270, for a total of 110,517.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. The next one, let's do the collector. Thank you. Hello, Ken. I took some time to go through the collector budget here. I believe it's pretty straightforward. The main thing to note is that, now that we have just one elected treasurer and collector, although they're two separate positions, they're being paid as one position with 50% of the salary going into the collector's department and 50% going into the treasurer's department. And between Keith and Ken, can you remind me again when it's really becomes a combined position?
26.
So there's a gap. So last year, meaning last May, our current collector decided not to, our previous treasurer decided not to run again. Mr. Mullally ran. He was elected as treasurer. So he'll be finishing up his first year this year. When we spoke to the state and spoke to legal counsel, what they said was to transition from two separate positions that are elected to a combined appointed position. You had to wait to officially do that until the last elected position's term expires. So to try to paint a little bit of a picture for you, at the end of a year from now, the collector's position, the term of the collector's position will be ending. What we'll do is we'll appoint, the position will be appointed for 1 year by the town administrator. Will be appointed by the town administrator. That will be fiscal 26. Fiscal 27, the treasurer's term will end. And we'll have the ability at that point to, starting July 1st of 26, to legally, I guess, combine those two positions into one position. And a person will be appointed to the combined treasurer collector position. So the process, that's what the process is going to be. The state law requires that. So
right now, the long and short of it is July of 26 is when we would probably have a combination treasurer / collector.
Yep.
Okay. The bottom line of the budget here is about $8,000 less for 25 than 24. About 14,000 less for 25 and 23. It's basically this half a salary. But it's also the, wage and personnel salaries. We have, do we have two full-time people for wage and personnel in this budget, the $82,853?
There is only one full-time in the collectors, and then there was one part-time.
And those are union positions.
They're both union positions.
Okay,
So the clerical union of 82 is 1.5.
Right, yes, right now.
okay.
We've got, just to maybe try to clarify, we've got an assistant collector in the collector's department. We have an assistant treasurer in the treasurer's department. We have an administrative position that is shared 50-50 between both departments. So the 82,000, I think you mentioned, in the collector's budget is for the full-time assistant collector and 20 hours of a part-time administrative position. And you'll find the same thing under treasurer.
If I may, what was the wage and personnel position for 19,000? It's no longer there.
So,
It's basically just a clerk to enter payments.
part-time position.
On the wages.
Elaine, I can explain that a little bit.
Thank you,
Okay,
Carol. Go ahead.
In prior years, we did not have a union position for the halftime person or the 19.5 hour person. So FY 25 is the first year we're able to have that in the union.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
That one doesn't seem to be on.
It's on. I don't know.
It's as low as it's gonna go there.
I think everybody in this room knows how much it would break my heart if there was something wrong with the technology here. That it wasn't working.
It may, because you wouldn't be able to have a meeting.
We should have voted the IT budget.
I see budget.
Yeah. I think the collector, budget for postage is the mailing out of all the tax bills, so that's probably their single biggest expense besides labor. I think that's the only comments, questions I have.
And people do have the ability, I believe, to sign up to have their tax bills emailed to them.
Yes.
And what that does is it's convenience for the customer, but it's also savings in postage for the town. So we're trying to push that as well, but it is voluntary.
Yes.
Just, why did stationery go down from 9,000 in 23 to 6,000?
Stationary, Carol, help me out on this one, but I think the stationary was the actual bills. That's where they parked that. Right, Carol?
I mean, I'm looking at it, it was budgeted as,
I don't know. I can't answer that right this second. I don't know.
There's no way in God's green earth that I would go through $9,000 in stationery.
We can verify that.
it was budgeted as 6 back in 23. And so it blew past its budget by $3,100.
Yeah, so that was,
So I would imagine it probably
that's
the
the
same
bill.
again.
it's actually the bill. I'm pretty sure that's the. When we get a Kelly and Ryan bill,
If that's the case, is 6,000 an appropriate number for 25, that's all.
I'm guessing it was based on what it was prior.
Don't have to-
We're over year to date.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was budgeted in 23 as 6, but ended up obviously being more than that now.
just something to think about, that's all.
What can you pull for elsewhere, like tax title expense line item 1,600 last year, haven't used any this year.
Most of that tax title number is from the treasurers. There isn't much of a tax title expense to the collector's office. And
You wanna leave it alone, you wanna
I mean,
move those line items
it's-
up around, I mean.
I mean, I'm just making the statement that, you know, is this, if you think you're gonna be over, should we just make that, not today, tonight, but look at it, and if you think you're gonna be over, you might as well have an accurate budget.
Mhm.
Taking into consideration tax title.
We have no more billings, do we?
So let us do this. So let's go back and take a look.
All I have is one more billing, right?
Yes.
It's just,
May 1st.
It
May,
may be okay.
right, but all those bills have been mailed, so all that money has been expended. I think there's only one or two maybe, motor vehicle.
Yeah, it's as of December.
So there's,
Oh, this is as of December?
Yeah.
But, I mean,
which
there's
means
something.
our ASML wasn't reflected.
Appreciate you bringing that up. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you if we need to make a adjustment.
On that same note, just postage was budgeted in 23 at 21.5. It ended up being 25, so over by 4 there as well.
And it just
So,
went up again.
yeah, so perhaps look at both postage and stationery.
Stationary to date we're 800 over right now,
So there you go.
so that's your billing. So we'll probably move.
okay, let's leave it that the collector and the town administrator will get together and make any changes that they see necessary. And then the finance committee will say that the budget is too high and you're not gonna approve anything.
I'd agree with you on that, but these are actuals.
You really
The
want to,
cost is the cost.
So I would.
do you really want to kick it down the road, or can we, want to just bump them down? I mean,
If I could, if the board wants, if FinCom wants to approve what's presented to you this evening, if there's a need to come back to you and have you reconsider it, that might make more sense. And if we don't need to, you won't have to hear from Mr. Moale again.
Although they enjoy it, so.
That would be sufficient to me
No,
because we all, number one, we know when we get into May, June, that there are room in other departments, other budgets where we can realign things.
Right.
So that I'm happy with that at this stage, but for this size of a department.
all right, so you want to leave it? All right.
I have not yet done the tax title letters for FY 23. So that 1,600 would, most of that would have to stay there. But I could move 1,000 down to the bills if that would, that's where you want to see it.
We got them delayed themselves.
Or even,
Yeah, they're gonna do it.
Okay,
even overtime. Did you take money from the overtime?
absolutely.
So other random questions. So how's the collecting going? How far behind are the Kingston residents on their bills?
I think we do pretty darn well. We're somewhere around 97% on an annual basis, 90. I think it was 98 last year.
Okay.
That's pretty darn good. Our tax title number never goes down, but we'd like to see that go down.
The tax title number never goes down because the town of Kingston insists upon not having any commercial development. So the real estate taxes for the residents have to go up 3 to 4% every year. Could I have a motion on the collector's budget?
I'll move personnel, 130,459, expenses, 37,375, for a total of 167,834.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Well, we've got Ken here. Let's look at the treasurer and tax title.
Tax title, pretty simple. I can, just give you a quick recap of what my plan is
That's all
for
we have left.
the next 12 months is to get rid of some of that receivables. We have a lot of low hanging fruit. And if I enlist the help of our attorneys, usually a strongly worded, letter from our attorney saying that we're gonna foreclose on the property and we're gonna put that property up for auction, we'll get, a good response. At least that's what I'm hearing from my colleagues. So that's, in the next 12 months, I'm hoping to have, some really good properties put together to, put up for auction.
For as long as I was involved here with the finance committee and then as treasurer, we always had a budget of $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 for tax title. It was always felt, and my experience was that 30,000 was about the amount of money that you could use with a lawyer with the amount of management time you have. So that, you know, if the treasurer could spend half of his time on tax title, then you should be asking for a $60,000 budget because you'd have a lot more involvement with the lawyer, you'd be doing a lot more research, et cetera. But at the level of the time that at least I felt I had as a treasurer to work tax title issues, 30,000, 35,000 seemed to me to be about the right amount. And what that does for the town is that over the last 10 years, it's almost a guarantee that it's going to bring in somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 of back taxes. Then you get lucky or you get some extra effort. I did the Hillside Club. That was over 200,000 that we collected. Ken's got some ideas here to sell some fairly valuable properties that could bring in a couple $100,000 at a time. You're not going to consistently, you know, be able to do $500,000 a year because Kingston just doesn't have the properties to foreclose on that are worth anything. We have a lot more of tax title land that is nothing but wetlands or swamps or almost worthless. It sits on the town's books because nobody wants it. Ken, if you want to add anything to that?
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
So is that the professional services line item in this budget?
No, that would
It's
be,
under
Legal under
title.
tax title.
We're a tax title now.
that's a separate,
Ken started with tax title.
because that was the easy one to go.
And one of the mistakes that I made as treasurer, I think, is I tried to get too much cooperation within the building. Tried to get everybody involved, including the selectmen, conservation, planning, everybody involved before I would sell any property. And if you do that, you'll never sell anything. That, you know, there's one department or another that always wants to keep this piece of property. So that I admire Ken. I think he may be more aggressive at doing it than I was. Any other questions on tax title? I move that we recommend approval for $35,000 budget for tax title for FY 25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I have trouble getting that abstain word. 600. Now the treasurer can. The treasurer's budget, the same thing really applies that we spoke before on the collector. You have the half of the elected official's salary. You have an assistant treasurer in wage and personnel. You have a union salary, which is the payroll administrator. You have a few dollars worth of overtime, basically for payroll administrator. Longevity, you probably don't need that longevity $1,400 anymore.
No,
So I'm not gonna take that out, but I'm gonna tell the town administrator that there may be $1,400 here when he's looking for it, that that was for a former employee.
And just so the FinCom's aware, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
So we've lost one or two payroll coordinators over the last 12 to 18 months. We're now using an outside firm that comes in and helps us out with that. Right, it's providing us a really good service. We're progressing to move to eliminate paper paychecks or paper pay stubs and go all electronic. That should be happening sometime in April, 29th of March. We're also looking to move to, electronic timesheets as well and eliminate paper. So we're trying to modernize if we can, where we can. If we may be able to hire a payroll coordinator during fiscal 25, not sure. We have a pretty good program working the way things are, but we frankly couldn't find one who was qualified to do the job when we looked at one time. So we were fortunate enough to get an outside company who is willing to work with us and provide us services, who's used to or acclimated with Harper's, and is working with us to try to modernize the payroll.
Where are we paying that in the actuals here,
Yes, it's.
Consultant.
Oh, your professional
Professional
services. Yeah, I see it. Okay. Thank you.
That answers that question.
Yeah, the $30,000.
So the consultant is in here. Does that mean there's not a clerical position or a wage and personnel position above?
Wage and personnel,
Wage and
just
personnel.
the assistant treasurer,
Yeah.
wage and personnel.
Mhm.
Okay,
It's the union position that's missing.
Right. The position is there because we didn't know we weren't going to hire someone. So
Okay.
we've moved that money to the professional services.
So the 56 is moved? From following along?
So if I could, the 56
clerical.
the 56 is in wages right now. Because we still aren't sure, we're gonna have to make adjustments or transfers during the year, depending on whether we have a professional service or we have an employee working. So during the year, as things move forward, we'll transfer monies from one line to another as necessary. But the $56,000 we have in the budget will satisfy either the
I got you.
contracted employee or the union employee if it's filled.
which is why the professional services for 25 is only 6,000.
Yes, ma'am.
So then that would probably eliminate the overtime too, if you don't have anybody.
We have an assistant treasurer. I'm sorry, yeah, assistant treasurer
Assistant treasurer,
who is working.
a lot. Yeah, he's doing a great job.
So I don't know how much that would change if any perspective.
Okay, anything else on the,
Because when you pay overtime, is it at time and a half?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. It seems like it would make sense to try to get rid of the overtime.
If you didn't have to, so I don't have, I've got one hourly employee that works in the department. And there are times where that employee has to work overtime to get whatever responsibilities he has done. I can assure you, knowing the gentleman who's in there, if he didn't have to work overtime, he's got a lot of other things he'd rather do outside of work. But he is having to work overtime at different times of the year, depending on the work.
and I think it's also somewhat of a penalty you pay, at least initially. When you have, we're going to the concept of one elected treasurer collector. So that, in effect, right now, they're operating with one less body. Kyle Pike isn't sitting here anymore, and so.
Sure feels like he is.
So that, when I was involved a bit when we hit a couple of different times in my career, when we looked at combining these two positions. And I always maintained that for the first year, you wouldn't save a nickel. And with some efficiencies and some changes over time, I would hope that you might save the equivalent of a half a body after that first year. That I didn't think you would ever get to the point where you could just save a full body.
If I could, Mr. Chair, the overtime number was 3,000 that was requested by the department, that's a one. I just want to make sure when you're looking at the budget document in front of you, I think it should say $1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it?
Good
Oh,
point.
you're right. Sorry, I missed that. What's the borrowing expense? Of 5,000?
I haven't touched it yet, so we really haven't come.
When you do certain debt financing, a lot of the debt financing is the fees are paid as part of the transaction. However, occasionally there are some fees that the town or the borrower has to incur. So that's what that $5,000 was intended for. Is it $5,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see that
21.
there was almost $4,000 back in 21. In most cases, that shouldn't be needed, but if I was still treasurer, I'd be arguing you need to have something there. Whether it's 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000, I'm not sure. Carol, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that usually we use that line to pay Lock and Lord, our bond counsel.
Okay,
So-
that's another one. And also, is that where we pay for any of the financial advisors fees? They might go there too.
I believe so, yes.
The Service Bureau fees, if you probably know, but that's the payroll services, the Harper's payroll processing. The auditing, accounting. This may be, are you having, this is for the post-retirement medical actuarial study that has to be done every year, but a detailed one every third year. Is it this year that they're doing the detailed one? Do you know?
It feels like it.
Well,
It's painful.
but you had to do all new statistics, get all new information.
All retirees, all the new retirees, all their spouses.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is that for, let's call it year one, you pay a premium because they do all this detail. Year 2 and 3, you only pay about a half or a third of the amount. Then year 4, they have to do a total review, so it costs you again. So you probably don't need the $10,000 in both 24 and 25. I just am not sure. See, it looks to me like in 22, they must have done a thorough one because I paid the $8,500. 23 was only 3,500. So I think that 24 should only be 3,500 or maybe 4,000, whatever the new number I negotiated. And then 25 will be the full blown one again at 10,000. So I'm 90% sure, Ken, you're doing the easy one.
Thanks.
And I'll tell you, it's by far the worst thing that this treasurer ever had to do work with
It
it.
is.
Because we're just not set up. Computer wise, statistics wise, all that stuff. And it's not easy, but that's my long and short of saying that I think that you've got some cushion in 24, but you probably need it for 25. Or you do need it for 25.
It's two things,
Yeah.
advertising and dues and memberships, you have 1,000 each, and nothing's been spent to date yet, so.
Advertising would be for tax title, so
Okay.
we'll need that.
Yeah.
And what was the other?
Dues and membership.
Dues and members.
Dues and memberships those are coming due. MCTA, both Nick and I, but now I have a third person that I'm debating on putting her in that. But part of that, I'm pretty sure I've used part of that to cover a portion of the expense to go out to Amherst. Nick and I go out to Amherst once a year for a
Yeah.
week for school. For accreditation as electors and treasurers. So, I think I've used part of that line.
Okay.
It's calling me fast. There are a couple of, and I've never asked Carl this question, but there are a couple of other associations for treasurers alone. I just don't have time right now to go to those meetings. Way too many meetings right now.
Okay? Anyone else? I'll move that the finance committee recommend approval of the treasurer's budget at $166,822 for salaries, $55,000 for expenses, for a total of $221,822.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 600. All right, the,
Thank you, folks.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dan.
Thanks, Ken.
Appreciate all your help and all of your.
Let's do employee benefits next. I spent some time just going through the employee benefits here. As far as I'm concerned, the only ones worth talking about are the medical insurance and the retirement accounts. And the one thing, in fact, I want to wait until Keith comes back in here because I don't want to throw this one entirely at Tina. Does anybody have any questions on anything except the medical insurance and the retirement?
I just had the tuition, what's the 10,000 used for?
So we have tuition reimbursement that KTU and wage and personnel have in their contracts and bylaw. And it's 2,000 a fiscal year. It used to never exist. There was no budget for it. And then I put it in at the 10,000. Over the last few years, we've had a couple of people take advantage of it, but looking at budgets and trying to save funds, we're only gonna budget the 4,000 for FY25. As I'm not anticipating 5 people coming forward to do tuition reimbursement.
So we should reduce that.
It is reduced to 4,000.
Not in our book.
Right?
Tuition reimbursement, Carol,
Says
do
10 grand.
you have that at 10?
I have the selectmen.
I have it as 4,000 after the selectmen's meeting. And I had forwarded to the FinCom email right after that meeting.
Maybe it's in here.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I have that page here. I just hadn't turned it back far enough.
hold on.
The HSA, FSA payments, what's the amount that we are providing if an individual goes with the high deductible plan?
You're supposed to, the employer has to provide half the deductible. So our family plan is a $4,000 deductible, so we supply 2,000, and then our individual is a 2,000 deductible, so we have $10,000 that we can.
So we're looking at like 7 or 8 employees that have actually chosen to go with the high deductible plan.
I think it's more like 12. I believe it's more like 12.
And out of town, how many employees within the town that?
So it's important to note that the school employees. don't
I'm
have
sorry.
this as an option for them. And I believe benefits eligible wise, I think we have 200 employees as well.
If I could, on employee benefits, I just want to make one quick comment on health insurance, overall. So we negotiated all 6 collective bargaining agreements, including lieutenants. The new contracts, new 3-year contracts started July 1st of 2024. We're in year 1.
2023.
23.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we're in 2024 now. So we're closing in on the end of year 1. What we negotiated in those contracts was the first change in health insurance offerings in a long time. We still offer the current, what I call the Cadillac plan. What's it called?
So you want me to talk about it a little bit?
Well, I guess what I want to say is we offer a very expensive plan that traditional plan that most communities have gotten away from and have been for a number of years. We have supplemented with that with a high deductible plan that we contribute half of the HSA to. In year 1, the traditional plan remained the same 60-40 percentage split, 60% town, 40% employee. To start weeding people off of that plan, what we did in the contracts was we increased the employee cost share from 40% to 45%. In hopes that frankly, they'd be a little more open to changing to some of the lesser expensive plans. And B, we've given employees who are thinking about moving to the high deductible plan, we've given them the opportunity to have some of the coworkers that have moved to that plan be able to share their experiences, good or bad, with those employees, with the assumption that when the people who have moved to the high deductible plan are satisfied with that plan. And will encourage or comfort those who are thinking about moving there to go in that direction. So that's fiscal 25. Fiscal 26, the expensive traditional plan is gone. And what we have left is a high deductible plan and a benchmark plan, which are still good plans, but the benefits and the cost is much less than traditional. So to make a long story longer, the estimated costs in the health insurance lines this year there are basically what we expect based on our current our current employees keeping the same plans in fiscal 25. The cost of the health insurance is being voted on tomorrow by Mayflower. They expect the costs, at least for us, and I think for the entire plan, to go up 4%. So that's in those numbers. I truly expect people to migrate from the traditional the costly traditional plan to one of the other 2 plans, benchmark plan or the high deductible plan, because of cost or because they have found they found that the other plans are just as good. Also, I guess lastly, and I'm not sure how important this is, but I think it seems to have been in the conversations we've had with employees. The only dental insurance the town of Kingston ever offered in the past was included in the traditional plan. So if you wanted any type of dental insurance that basically covered maintenance, cleanings and things of that nature, you often would opt for the traditional plan because those dental expenses. Some dental expenses were included in the traditional plan. We have negotiated to add dental insurance as a benefit to employees at the same cost share as the health insurance 60-40 split, town employee and employee. At I think a pretty reasonable budget expense to the town. I think that there'll be people moving from the traditional plan solely because they can get the cost for a benchmark plan or a high deductible plan and the premium they're going to pay for dental is going to be less than the cost share they're going to pay for the traditional plan. So the numbers don't reflect that migration because frankly, I don't know what the migration is going to be, but I do expect some migration. So I apologize for the long-winded answer, but that's kind of what we've done with health insurance in fiscal 25.
As long as we're on medical insurance now, the one thing I would like to point out, and I would also say that I was the first one to say to Keith here back a year and a half ago, and Tino, when we started doing this, that I've been involved in Kingston finances for about 12 years. And I think for at least 8 of those years, we were talking about we had to do something to get medical insurance under control. The thing that bothers me just a little bit now, and I hope that this is temporary, but if I look at 2020, I had 2.9 million, 21, 2.8 million, 22, 2.9 million, 23, 3.0 million, 24, including this new stipend, 3.4 million, 25, including this new stipend, 3.6 million. So far, I'm seeing a lot of additional costs, and I'm just, waiting to see, like Keith just said, that hopefully in FY 25 and FY 26 for sure, we start seeing some of the benefits of going to some of these other plans. Because if we continue to be at this 3.5 million level, then I will question if, what we're really accomplishing.
And I guess, and I appreciate that, and I would like to say, I guess if I could, I want to say that conservatively, 85% of our employees are on this traditional plan, the most expensive plan. That plan in itself will not be offered 15 months from now. So proof's in the pudding, right? I'm hoping that as I sit here a year from now, you're going to see what I would like to see is a reduction in the health insurance line, because the expense for this traditional plan, which is well over $30,000 a year for a family per person or per subscriber, is no longer going to be available to those employees.
And there's also another plan that's going away. Same thing for fiscal 25. It's going to be a 55-45 split. And then in FY 26, it's going away, and it's so you have the traditional plan, which is the Cadillac plan, and then slightly under that is the rate saver plan, which isn't as expensive but still expensive, and that's going away.
Can you give us numbers on just using this year as an example? What are we looking at cost of, say, the Cadillac plan, the rate saver plan, the other plan, and then what an FSA would be?
The cost of what?
Just what the
monthly
cost
premium?
incurred- Yeah, what the monthly
Sure.
premium incurred by the town.
Yeah, we'll put that together for you and email it to Mr. Pike later this week
Can I just ask a question on
or
the
early next.
stipend?
Yes, sir.
So is that for employees that don't take the health
Yes,
insurance?
sir.
So
We've got how many employees that don't take health insurance?
There's probably close to 6.
So, I mean, again, our health insurance is crazy expensive. I'm not trying to deny that, but we could have up to 60 more people on that plan.
and how much is this?
$8 grand. $8 grand for a family, $9 grand for a family, 4,500, 3,500, excuse me.
And again, the schools aren't part of that. It's just.
And it was based on premiums, premium cost and premium savings if we move to that.
And see, initially, that's a cost, right?
Oh, sure it is.
Because those are people that aren't costing the town anything.
Right.
And now we're handing them a check.
To some
So
degree,
it-
but
it
there
didn't
are
have any-
people, there are people who have left our
Yeah.
insurance. I'm not so, but you're right.
Yeah.
There are people who weren't on our
We certainly
insurance.
recognize
But it weren't on our insurance prior, but now to remain off of our insurance, but get whatever they are due for.
So I think that would be an interesting thing to know is
Sure.
how much the 467,500 incentivized people to come off the plan, and if it, or if it was just an additional 460,000 that was spending.
I don't, so again, I'm gonna speculate, and Tina might disagree, and if she does, I would ask her to correct me. I don't think we saw a lot of change in fiscal 24. I think in fiscal 25, this budget you're reviewing, and in fiscal 26, you're gonna see changes. You're gonna see an increase in the buyout potentially, or an increase or a change in health insurances that will more than make up the savings that we're offering in that buyout.
Because logically speaking, you would think if we're offsetting another, almost $500,000 in stipends, that you would expect the medical insurance to go down at least half of it. And yeah, I mean, that would be ideal.
And again, with that's, the way I think we're able to come to terms with the unions. And the only way I believe we can't come to terms with the union is not just stop the traditional plan immediately, cut it off, because I think there was significant concerns, and we spent a lot of time, with union representation, explaining what we were trying to move to and give them the opportunity to kind of put, stick their toes in the water and get a sense of what the other options are going to be moving forward. But again, without dental insurance offered until July 1st of this year, and people just, a high deductible plan is a whole different animal for people who have never had to take anything out of their pocket but a health insurance card. And
But that change isn't necessarily negotiable, right?
what's that?
Just removing the plan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All negotiable.
It's all
We don't
negotiable.
negotiate.
Okay, I thought in 2010 there was some health insurance reform that
The
gave the
town, I don't
cities
think
and
that-
towns some
They
plan
have to
design.
adopt it, but Kingston didn't adopt it. And so, just if I can have.
Sure.
Should be adopted.
Well, just so a few things. So I would say that employees that have benefits eligible employees that have started with the town this year, I would say more than half have gone the stipend route instead of taking our insurance, and probably half of those were people that could have taken our insurance. The other thing to keep in mind is our benefit year is a July 1 through June 30th, where most people's is January. And so what we were hearing a lot last year, and so we're hoping to see it during our open enrollment this year, which is April to May, is they signed up for our benefits April, May, so that their family was covered in July 1. But January 1, their spouse took over the insurance. They wouldn't get the stipend in that position because you have to start it from the beginning of the year. So I'm expecting to see people that are on our benefits dropping our benefits and going to their spouses now, because there's a qualifying event for them to do that.
How did you come up with the amount for the stipend?
So what I did was I tried to take, I think it was an average of the three plans that we're offering. Come up with what the monthly cost, the annual or monthly, the monthly cost was, I think it was 40% of the cost of the average plan, annually.
It would have been a little bit less. So on average, our family plans cost us about $30,000 an employee, and we're giving $9,000.
I wonder if that could be reduced even more.
Not until 27.
What's up to 9,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, again,
I mean, I don't get a stipend for being on my husband's insurance.
And I get penalized for being on my husband's insurance.
Why? How?
It's a private company. If I have health insurance through another employer and I don't take it, my husband has to pay a penalty.
Interesting.
And he works for a California-based company, so.
Now, how are these stipends paid? Is it included in salary?
mm-mm.
So
No,
it's in retirement?
no, it's its own line.
It's a line item.
So
Right.
it's paid to the employees, depending on the union negotiation. The majority of the unions, the majority of the unions chose to receive them quarterly, at the end of each quarter. So we weren't having to fight with employees who left early in the quarter or whatnot, that you owe us some amount of money out of the stipend. There are some, I think maybe two unions that take it semi-annually, same thing. It gets paid at the end of December and the end of June.
So it's not part of their salary that makes the retirement benefits go up.
No.
So I would defer to Carol. It's not part of their salary, whether or not it's retirement eligible. I don't specifically know the answer to that question. So I'd ask Carol. Maybe she knows.
Yeah, I do not know.
We'll find that, again, we'll find that out. We'll find out and let the board know along with the other information we're gonna provide you early next week.
Is it taxable?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's taxable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I suspect it's probably pensionable if it's taxable.
I don't know the
Yeah.
answer. I mean, so details are taxable, but they're not pension eligible. So I don't know.
But it's a number for the stipend, so.
We'll find out.
Interesting question.
I would be surprised.
But it's not, you have an idea.
I
what it
don't
is.
have,
You Google it.
have it in writing.
Sure.
I haven't looked, I wanted to ask that.
All the answers.
Okay, so, you know.
I mean, I would like to revisit that. I mean, I'm squabbling over $3,000 overtime, and that's 460,
You could- So
486,000.
respectfully, it's contract.
It's
You can
contract.
squabble
Yeah.
squabble over it, but it's contractually obligated.
Until
I'm sorry,
2027.
What do you wanna,
The stipend.
The
stipend
stipend,
amount.
I have an issue with it.
oh, that we shouldn't be budgeting for it?
Yeah, but it sounds like we have to until 2027. I mean, to squabble over $3,000 when there's $486,000.
The change right now is 60/40.
Mhm.
But it's one plan that's changing to 60/40.
The two expensive plans, the two traditional plans that we offer, we're not gonna offer them in a year, but we're in this second year of the contract, we're moving from 60/40 to 55/40, increasing the cost share to the employee.
they're not gonna get to Cobra once that plan goes away, right?
No.
Because they still be eligible. Provided it's-
I know, I was gonna say, but it would be great for them to see the cost, so.
Yeah, it would.
We all get, what is it, Form 1090 HSA or whatever, that shows your health insurance cost.
Well, again, to me, the important thing is that we've always recognized that how expensive medical insurance is for us. For everybody, but for the town, it's an expensive line item, but at least actions have been taken to try to, improve the situation or to keep it from, continuing to have a negative impact. So as Keith and I have both said in different ways, this time next year, I think we'll have a good idea that it's working and we don't need to make any adjustments, or it's not working and union contracts will be coming up again, and I'm sure they'll go from there. The other item is the pension. And I'm going to use this opportunity to say two things. Number one, in general, government, I think, is going to have to be taking a hard look at retirement costs. That, it's only in government entities now that you get a traditional pension. That industry has done away
What's a
with.
pension?
That you live on your own 401k or your 405b, whatever it might be, your IRA. And this is becoming a real difficult thing to deal with. 2020, we were 2,000,003. 21, 2,000,007. 22, 2,000,009. 23, 3,000,001. 24, 3,000,006. 25, 3,000,009. Two things are happening here. One thing, the accounting regulations, which force everybody to do this measurement using present values and all of this stuff, the accounting that we do for it, So that tends to have some ups and downs. The Plymouth County Retirement Fund was way underfunded forever, like most pension plans. So Plymouth County has, I think, done a good job in setting up a plan to fund it over a 10 or 12-year period, whatever it was. I believe that it's maybe 27 or 28, somewhere in the next 3 or 4 years, that it will be fully funded, so that a lot of these expenses will go away. Because right now, I don't know, Carol, do you know, is it 2/3 of this number is really in effect retroactive?
Yeah, I don't know the percentage of it, but it is quite substantial.
It's a big number that we're really expensing, $3 million a year. And a lot of it is in catch up, really. And so, one of the things that I said, and a lot of people have said, that once we get caught up here, let's pick a number. It provides an extra $1 million a year. Town, don't spend it on operating budget. Put it into the OPEB problem. That we have an OPEB liability, other post-employment benefits, really retiree medical insurance. It ranges from 40 to $60 million, however you want to look at it, or whenever the calculation's done. So that I would hope that once this is paid off, it'll create a funding vehicle to help pay off that thing. But in the meantime, somewhere along the line, it won't be in my lifetime. I don't think it'll be in Keith's lifetime, but some of you younger people here, we may actually see that the concept of retiree medical insurance, retiree pensions for government employees is going to have to go away. And when I say go away, it'll be grandfathered for anybody that's been in a plan for 100 years. But for those new hires, it's going to be just like industry. I hope that you get encouraged to do your own 401k. You get subsidized or helped to get your own medical insurance when you're going into retirement, et cetera, et cetera.
That's an interesting campaign speech.
It's like you got on your.
Yeah, I can tell you how many
soapbox
votes you'll get with that.
The other thing I should say is you'll notice how 24 and 25 for retiree retirement benefits is especially high, 3,600,000 and 3,900,000. Part of that was the actuarial calculation based upon the present value and interest rates, et cetera, so that I was involved when they were going to have a real big hiccup in 2024, FY24. And we got together and enough towns said, hey, wait a minute, can you at least divide this over 2 years so that we're getting penalized probably $300,000 or $400,000 in 24 and another $300,000 or $400,000 in 25. That's what I know about retirement and medical insurance. Anybody want to make any other comments on retirement plans?
Just a question, is the retirees' health insurance included in the group health insurance line, or is that in the?
Yes, it's included in the group health insurance. And I've asked Tina just informally to take a look at that for me. But I believe that it's getting to be a bigger and bigger piece of it. That the cost of our retiree medical insurance, or the town's retiree medical insurance, I think we're going to be surprised when, let's say, it's the magic $3 million a year. Is $1 million of it for retirees or $1.5 million? It's a big number. I know that, but I just don't know how big.
I don't disagree with you, but I would just ask Tina, because I think when they reach age 65, don't they have to move to a Medicare, Medicaid type situation?
Right,
So some of the expenses are reduced.
Right, so if you retire before 65, you still have access to our active plans, which is what an everyday employee has. And then at 65, you have the option of doing one of two retiree plans, which is substantially less.
They're substantially less, but they're adding up.
Oh, sure, no, no question.
When I used to do this OPEB
Mhm.
study that Ken was talking about, that's where it was amazing to me.
Yeah.
How much the town is really paying on retiree or medical insurance.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that really has to do with longevity too. People are just living forever, which is great, but you know, we still gotta pay for their insurance, so.
See, that was the
And their
biggest,
spouses.
the biggest benefit the town had when I was working for the town is that I didn't take either retiree or medical insurance.
Thank you.
So we all need to start smoking? Is that where we're going with this?
I'm fine with that. One last, I just wanted to make one last comment, because our 60-40 split is. There are a lot of towns in the area that pay more, they pay better than a 60-40 split. So I think just to keep that in perspective, although our number is high, it's important for us to stay competitive with other towns.
Yeah.
I appreciate, I question the stipend, but I understand that, it's an effort to try to keep that number down.
And is it Silver Lake, I think is 50-50. That they were always different in medical than we are. I think they're 50-50.
Somewhere, yeah.
All right, anything else on medical insurance or retirement? Or any of the other accounts for that matter? You know, I'm sure that you've all looked at it like I have and said, hey, FY 20, we spent 5,000,007. FY 25, we're budgeting 8,000,001. We've gone up $2.5 million, and it's basically all medical and retirement.
Mhm.
The rest of them are plus or minus 10, 20, 30K.
The only thing I'll add is that this is not unique to, the health insurance is not unique to government. Health insurance is painful across the board with organizations, and everybody's trying to find a silver bullet and can't.
I agree.
Maybe the way I've always looked at it, and I've been educated to look at it over the years of working for industry and academia and everything else, is you're never gonna reduce the cost, but you can mitigate the cost with some of these strategies that we're putting in place, because it will continue to go up by no fault of anyone in this room or any employee here, so.
Right, it's not like everybody's lining up to get MRIs because they're
Right.
fine.
All right, can I have a motion on fringe benefits, employee benefits?
I'll do, what's the first line, 8,032,328. The expense, whatever the next line is categorized, 46,600,
I think it's 42. because
40,600. Because it was reduced by 6,000.
By-
That's true.
I wrote 4,000.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, you're
Those
right.
reduced
You're right.
4,000, right?
40,600.
A reduction of.
You're right.
So it's
So it's 40,600, making the total budget amount 8,072,928.
Second.
8,072,928.
I have a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0-0.
Thank you.
Okay, accounting, let's do accounting, get accounting done.
Except for us.
Yeah.
Okay, that one, it was just an email with Carol, not much to be said about that. It's, again, salaries and, expenses. So,
I don't think I have anything in mind, though.
there's no red lines on, no yellow lines on this one.
Yeah, the only note I made was one director of finance, one clerical union, and she really acts like a accounts payable junior accountant. Correct, Rhonda? Anybody have any questions, comments on the $194,714 budget for accounting.
The only thing that I just wanted to ask about is, it looks like last year this was all reflected in wage personnel, and now we have a clerical union salary. Was there a shift in employee designation, or?
No, as the year progressed, we originally thought that that position was going to be moved to wage and personnel. But the
Okay.
negotiations with the union, failed on that account. So it's back to the union line.
Okay. That was the only question I had, was just the difference.
Thank you.
Personal services, 189,844, expenses, 4,870, for a total budget of 194,714.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Town clerk, election. Mr. Gallagher's had his election, so he's not here. Let's do elections. First in the alphabet. Elections and registration.
No comment.
We have a total budget of $77,670, which includes $41,500 for salaries. It was reduced by $2,500 from the original request for overtime. I assume that was probably based upon the number of elections and that type of thing. The types of expenses here are, $6,700 for police detail, $6,400 for postage, $6,200 for printing ballots. Anybody have any questions? I'll move that the finance committee recommend approval of the elections and registrations budget at $41,500 for salaries, $36,170 for expenses, for a total of $77,670.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Town clerk. Town clerk has a bottom line budget of $213,915 as compared to a budget for last year of $209,735. I think one thing Paul would tell us if he was here when we look at the expenses of the total actual spent in prior years is that in this country, we've done a good job of making the elections more complicated. We've got all kinds of mail effort going on. We've got all kinds of early voting at different facilities. And so I can somewhat understand having this budget go up, approximately $25,000 over a 3 or 4 year period.
But it's gone up a lot more than that.
Well, if you go from, okay.
If I'm looking at 2021 actuals versus,
$40,000, yep, you're right. You're right. Now, one of the things that was done is that there has been some attempts, I think, by this committee over the last 5 years to increase the elected official salaries. And the town
Mhm.
clerk here is the officials, one of the official elected official salaries, so that's gone from 72,000 to 86,000, which is probably considerably less than a 7 or 8% compounded annual increase. The clerical union salaries, that's the assistant town clerk plus an administrator in that department. They have the 3 full-time people, town clerk, assistant town clerk, and the administrator. And I think that's probably all I have on town clerk.
I did have a note that there was the expectation that they were gonna be asking for an additional FTE this year. I don't know, Keith, if you knew anything about that or why that didn't happen.
Wasn't requested.
All right, then.
There you go. We're trying to give them more.
You know, simply put, it wasn't requested. I know the clerk is, speaks every year, especially when it gets really, really busy with elections and whatnot, and you need to know in person. But one hasn't been requested yet.
All right. Just trying to spend money here. That's all.
Might as well keep going. Did you want me to move to approve?
Sure.
I move that the finance committee approve, I guess personnel for $199,678, expenses of $14,237 for an overall budget for the town clerk of $213,915.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Okay, that takes care of our budget reviews for tonight. The next thing on the agenda of the meeting, the minutes from last meeting. Yes.
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman,
Yes,
I haven't mentioned this to anybody yet, and I was just looking at all the numbers today for the renewable energy enterprise. Can we revisit that and lower that back down to 500,000?
Sure.
750?
Which budget is that?
Renewable energy.
Oh, did we already vote on that?
Yeah. January.
Oh, okay.
So from 750, Carol, down to
500,
500.
like it has been, yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500.
Excellent.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Everybody have a
The-
good night.
You
Thank
too,
you.
Carol. Thanks for being here. The minutes, thank you, Rhonda, for sending them out in advance. The one item I saw was in the water department paragraph near the bottom. We said Chris stated the land will be purchased as soon as the estate is settled. That's fine. And they are in the process of a rate study paid by a grant to determine if rate increases. I said add in if additional rate increases are needed because they just processed an increase. I'm okay, I think, with everything else. And Rhonda, just for your information, I'm okay with a little bit less detail on some of the budget items. That it doesn't matter if you put them in there.
Carl stated that both the town and the school budgets need to be kept in check. Maybe you don't want that in the.
But
You know what? I think that the people that read these deserve those little tidbits.
I do too.
I think that as someone who reads government regulations a fair amount, I enjoy when there's a bit of levity in them. So
all right, the majority rules. No doubt about that.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Just even,
Opposed? Abstained, 500. Minutes are all set.
even mine, Deborah stated that she disapproves of rubber stamp budgets.
See?
Good with that.
That would give me,
My
that,
mouth
that
shut.
would give me a chuckle.
Oh, thank you, Rhonda.
All they have to do is watch the tape and they'll see.
There you go. No, that's true.
Is
There you go.
there
That was my
any-
one comment.
Any other comments, questions, concerns by any members here? Our next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight, March 20th. Board of Health, Council on Aging, Library, Conservation, Planning Department, Recreation, and Veterans Department. I think that these should be relatively simple. Yeah, you know, I've got April 3rd listed as the schools. I am gonna request this year. In other years, we've gotten away from having anybody from the school committee or the school administration come to the finance committee. You
They
people,
came last year.
did they come last year?
Somebody
Okay.
did anyways.
Well, I think it's important, and I'm going to try to get, you know, at least one from the administration and one school committee member to come. I'm not sure that we're gonna be ready, or they're gonna be ready April 3rd. I will keep you informed of any additional information I get, although, you know, we always have to be careful about the so-called open meeting law. If I send out a email to 6 people saying, hey, here's what I found out, just don't comment on it or something. But there is a Silver Lake School Committee meeting tomorrow night that anybody's welcome to attend. I'm planning on going. And in fact, I'm giving up a Boston University playoff basketball game to go to a school committee meeting. That probably says something
Good
about,
times.
says something about me.
What's their record this year?
I think it's about 500, 16 and 17, and this is their league tournament.
Oh.
League tournament,
Oh,
and they managed to somehow finish second in the league, so they get a home game tonight, so, I mean, tomorrow night.
So does this meeting count as a senior write-off, tax write-off for you?
Good,
Because isn't it like, I don't know, volunteer work or something?
lot of volunteer work, yeah.
I
In all
did see
seriousness,
there's like 2,100 somebody had done, but
Yeah.
should, it really should.
I-
It is a lot more work than I thought when I signed up for this gig.
Well, and I can tell you that, and this committee is no different than any other committee I've ever been on. The chairperson, if the chairperson is doing a good job, does probably 75–80% of the work, and the other 5 or 6 people do, you know.
We just show up and
Are you
look
calling
good.
us slackers?
No, not at all. It's just the nature of the beast, I think. That
Well, it's also, I'm new to this whole world, so I go by your guidance,
well,
pretty much.
will, and this year so far, I think I've been a little bit frustrated that trying to get through things without making a lot of changes. And I would, I don't know what we're gonna do when we get to a final bottom line. And, you know, if this, depending what we do, I may say, who's ever involved next year, you may want to go back to beating the crap out of every single budget. And, you know, on an ongoing basis, because I know that, I think I've seen some frustration on you that we're, in some of these budgets, we're just saying.
Oh, as a taxpayer, I'm just like a
Yeah,
little, just,
exactly.
and then also, I was kind of like, as I whatever, that's somebody that works in corporate America,
Sure.
right, my salary is bigger than these, but then I think, oh, that's right, they get health insurance and they get this pension that I no longer get. So, so even though I was kind of promoting bigger salaries, it's still, I forget that the extra benefits that they get that we no longer get in corporate America.
Because one of the things that I have pointed out to the town administrator, Keith, is that right now, even with the schools, well, no, let's take the schools out of the budget. Without the schools in the budget, if you take the subtotal line of the current draft budget, where we have added in the wage and personnel, $80,000 or whatever it is we anticipate going into the operating budget. So to me, to get a true operating budget, the towns, other than the schools, I shouldn't say the towns, the town departments, other than the schools, are at a 5.1% right now. We had said we were looking for 3, maybe 3.5%, and we're not making a lot of noise yet at the 5.1%. But I think it's important that all officials, everybody that we recognize, that we are supporting town departments to the extent of 5%. Proposition 2.5 was set up for a reason, that the guideline should be 2.5% and go from there. How do we get to 3 or 3.5%? We have new growth in a community. That's how you get to 3 and 3.5%. If you're getting to 5% every year, then you're taxing your residents too much. And I think that that's something that's going to be addressed to come to a head when we get the school budgets in. I keep saying, you know, we need to have school budgets in order to better understand. And now we've probably got some issues with school budgets. It's, you know, delaying us a bit.
And just to add on to that, you look at the budgets and it's the expenses are minimal increases from year to year. I mean, it's no doubt it's salaries, it's people. But it comes down to, I mean, Ken said the collection rate's 97%. Well, maybe what are we using for, Carol's not on anymore, for a revenue projection? Are we projecting town revenue to be, I'm making it up, 85%, which is creating the $3 million free cash at the end of the year? Used to be $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.5 million tops. Now we've doubled free cash. Is that because we're being too conservative with revenues?
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't think about often enough, is that it's always good to have free cash. But most of that free cash is created because you overtaxed the residents the year before. And even, I must admit, I was involved in this for several years before I understood that concept.
Well, it's like the idea, if you get an IRS refund, it's great, you got a refund, but you were given the government a loan tax-free the entire year.
Exactly. Good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. that
Yep.
is good.
Side note, I paid this year, so.
Yeah, you paid too.
Well, you're doing your part.
So, yeah, I agree. We have to see where it all falls out. I mean, for me to pick one department and say, I don't like that salary increase over that salary, it's a philosophy.
Yeah, and I think another thing that is different here from when I started, and I think you too, Elaine, that there was a time that the finance committee worked with the departments to create a budget.
Right.
There was very little input from the town administration, that the finance committee was doing the budget. I think since our prior town administrator, Tom Calter, maybe a little bit before him, Bob Fennessy, that they started to get involved. And I think Keith has done a good job in involving the departments in creating their own budget. And so that's one of the reasons I have problems looking at a budget and trying to reduce $1,000 line item to $500. that, you know, the departments have worked with the town administrator has worked with the departments. So that it's almost like I'm trying to somehow get to the point in, okay, you have line item autonomy, I have bottom line. So here's the problem.
Yeah.
How are we going to cut $300,000 out of this budget? You know, and.
You could do like my company, get rid of pensions and
Yeah.
cut out the 401k match and do it once a year if you're hired, whatever.
But anyhow, I think that's enough, unless somebody has something else here.
No, no.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.